Hello, everyone. Today, I'm here with Tom Wallin, and we are going to be talking about mastering client intake. Tom and I are actually together here in Southern California in Santa Monica, presenting outside. So if there's a little background noise, hopefully it's part of the entertainment. So again, sorry about any of the, the background noise you guys might hear, but again, this is a great topic, and we appreciate you guys joining us today. I want to introduce Tom. Tom's an attorney and a public speaker, and has been discussing the nuances and the ins and outs of mastering client intake for a long time. And I know Tom and I talk about this quite often, but I'm going to let Tom introduce himself and tell him a little bit more about who he is and what he does in his background.
Hi guys, hi everyone. Thomas Wallin. I have my own law firm here doing personal injury, Wallin Law Firm. And background was a public defender, then got into DUI defense and ran that practice for several years before I sold that. And so I've had a lot of experience with doing intake and for my own firm as well as helping other firms. And as Travis mentioned earlier, we spend a lot of time actually listening to calls, helping clients. I'm also a senior vice president of legal marketing over at Scorpion and help with them with some consulting with Scorpion as well. So we're constantly working on intake because regardless of how many leads you get, if you're not doing a proper intake, it's wasting your money. So it's an important topic and something I think that can really benefit your law firm.
Yeah, it's just something that people talk about a lot, but very few people actually do anything about it. And Tom, needless to say, has experience in so many different realms. He's been on the client side. He's been on the agency side. He's experienced both worlds, so he knows exactly what each side deal with. So it's interesting the perspective he brings in. I think he adds such a dynamic to it that most attorneys don't necessarily get to experience, which is why his opinions and his takes on intake and how you can improve it are so important. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in. Started here. So today, what we're going to be talking about is, again, and we apologize for any of the background noise, you guys. We are outside in Santa Monica, so if you hear things, just bear with us. But today during the webinar, you're going to learn how, basically the methods behind mastering client intake and why empathy is essential in the rest of the pieces that you see here on the screen. But I'm going to let Tom kind of dive into each one of these because I know that he has particular feelings about each one and a take on each one. So Tom, tell us a little bit about what we're going to learn today.
Okay, yeah, so we're going to go through just the order here, but talking about empathy when you first get on the call with someone, how important that is in relating to them, and then also relating to the work that's going on here and bearing with that. So I apologize about that. We're actually going into a seminar a little bit late after this with John Morgan, with Morgan & Morgan. If you're familiar with that firm, it's the largest PI firm, or one of the largest PI firms in the country with over 400 lawyers. But we'll be talking about some of the stuff that they do and their intake process and what's helped them grow over the years. But empathy is key. When you first get on the call with someone, we're going to talk about creating a foolproof intake system so you actually have a system in place. So once you have an actual system in place, you can then understand what's working, what isn't, and able to make changes. If you don't have an intake system in place, you're going to be having different outcomes, different ways that people talk to people, and you're not going to know how to correct that and how to improve it. So we'll talk about putting a system together, then utilizing e-retainers, which is something that's a lot of attorneys still are not doing, which is hard to believe. But in the personal injury world and in the DUI criminal defense world, it's a really big must where you're on the phone with someone, connecting with them. You want to be able to retain them. And oftentimes, if you've created that connection on that first call, you can actually text them a retainer that they can sign on the spot and you can get that back and you're good to go. So we'll talk a little bit about that and how you use that. And then mastering the one call close. With that, it's really important to, again, learn how to connect with the client, understand their needs, and then give them the confidence to go ahead and hire you without having to talk to any other attorneys. And then also we'll talk about some of the top mistakes that we see law firms making. And I know Travis and I both listen to hundreds and hundreds of calls all the time, and we hear the good ones and the bad ones, and we hear good firms that aren't the best with their intake and some of the mistakes that they make, even though that they have some systems in place, they're still making some mistakes. And you want to be we'll talk about some things that you can do to stay on top of that and to make sure that if you are making mistakes, how to catch them and then how to improve on that.
It's funny. Tom was in the office yesterday. We were going to brainstorm some different ideas, and I said, hey, you got to listen to this call. It's one of the intake people that we use, we refer people to, and I'll share his information after the call. But Tom was, initially right off the bat, he goes, man, this guy's great. Can you download and share that call with me? And why Tom was so interested in having that call, that recording, is because Stephen was able to connect with the prospect immediately, and he was able to show the empathy almost right from the beginning of the call. And that person, you could just tell, that sigh of relief was, they were able to breathe, and they were able to, talk to Stephen openly and set an appointment and go through the process. So, again, just talking about empathy and why does it matter and why is it so important. I mean, that was it's a perfect example of being able to really connect with your prospect and make them feel comfortable with what you're going to be offering them.
Yeah, and it was amazing listening to that because it was such a good call, and we'll discuss some of the things that made it such an incredible call listening to that. But we had listened to earlier a firm that we both know and some of the intake calls that they were taking, and they were telling us how great their intake staff was. And then we were listening to the calls, and it was like there was no connection. It was just getting the phone number and just having a lot of difficulties just with the communication back and forth between the client and the intake person. And to hear the stark contrast in that is just, it's night and day. So we'll definitely go through that. One of the things is obviously connecting with that client. One of the things that we did on that last call that we listened to yesterday was the fact that when the person first called, he started talking about all these different problems he's having and wanted to explain his whole case. And yes, you need to listen. That's key. And a lot of attorneys will cut that person off right away and then start telling them what the law is, or start telling them what, this is, is it this vehicle code section, or did they cite you with this number, or whatever it is. They go into lawyer mode, not in a connection mode. And so the client that we called in was pretty excited and was talking really fast. And then the person handling the call, the intake individual, really handled it well and said, "Oh, let's slow down. I really want to make sure I understand everything." Gets the information from the individual, gets just basic his name, and says, "Okay, well," and then used his name during the questions and started talking to him and conversing with him and explained to him. He didn't talk over the client. He listened to the client, but then he would ask questions and kind of repeat back, and that's what we call practice active listening. When you're talking to the client that calls in, you want to have a system where you're repeating back to them what they said so that you make sure you understand what's going on. Oftentimes as attorneys, and I know I've done this plenty of times in my practice, is someone calls, they're talking about a particular problem, and you think you've already got this thing solved. You've heard a bunch of problems before, similar cases, so you think it's solved, and you're not totally listening to that person. When in fact, they may have some individual facts or something that triggers that is going to make their case completely different than someone else's, or they tell you something personal about their life or something you connect with them, and you're not listening for that because you're simply just going through the facts and not really listening to the person and what's going on in their own lives. And oftentimes that's the biggest thing, is connecting with the person and having that empathy and tell them, "I understand what's going on. I hear what you're doing. Let me ask you a few more questions about this," but you're doing it in a nice way. And so you can definitely tell when someone is trying to get through and they just want the facts really quick, because I understand as an attorney, you don't want to sit on the phone all day long with all these potential new clients, and you get off the phone and then all of a sudden you haven't taken 10 calls and there's 3 hours of your day that's gone. But if you take the time to really do it proactively with the active listening, repeating back what you hear from them and having the patience, you're going to find a much better result. And instead of having 10 clients that you spoke to and none of them are potential new clients you spoke to, none of them retaining, you're going to have 2 or 3 that actually retain. And that's going to make a much better, obviously an ROI, and a much better result at the end of the month. And also, it's going to be much easier as you get better at taking intake calls, or your staff does. It's going to be much easier for them to take more intake calls because they're going to feel a sense of success in the fact that they're retaining more people. And it gets easier. It's not so negative that way.
Yeah, you made a good point. I mean, just mentioning the person's name and addressing them by their name, saying, "Tom, hey, I hear you, I understand what's going on, but I want to learn more." It puts that person at ease. And it's those little things that people don't do that can make a significant difference. And I think that the piece you mentioned that I was most, I focused on was what they don't share with you is so important. And they won't share things with you if they don't feel comfortable with you. And how many times have attorneys had cases completely fall apart in the middle of the case because just all the information, and all of a sudden it comes out that the person had a previous injury or they're on their 3rd DUI or whatever it may be, and they just didn't tell you because they didn't feel comfortable, or you didn't ask the right questions, or you didn't listen well enough. And again, we can't stay on the phone with everybody all day long, but sometimes it's too scripted. Sometimes it's too, just robotic, where you're just going through the steps and let me get your name, let me get your number, what's your email address? Okay, tell me about your situation. That just doesn't work. I mean, it's so cold and callous that I mean, people just, they need to feel that sense of connection with you.
Definitely. Okay, so intent.
So, go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
Go ahead, Travis.
No. I was just going to go ahead and tell us about some of the intake basics. So go, you have at it. It's all you.
So when you start doing your intake, and you want to obviously create that empathy, but you want to make sure you have an intake system in place so that, as we mentioned earlier, that you can make sure that you can adjust that as time goes through and you listen to different calls. And I recommend listening to calls on a weekly basis. Even you may not be taking the intake yourself, you may be having your staff do that, and you think your staff is great, but you're not hearing the other side. For starters, a lot of times you're not hearing the person's in another room or whatnot, but you want to listen to, at least pick 2 or 3 calls and listen to those calls and figure out, okay, what did this person do well? What did they not do well? And then make those notes. And oftentimes you can clip that little part of the call. If you have a call recording and it's taped, clip the section where your intake staff did a great job and save that and use that as an example when you're training new staff, or even just to tell the staff, hey, great job doing this. And it's a little reminder of what they did well. And when something doesn't go well, you clip that portion of the call, you save that, and you say, hey, okay, here's how we can improve on this. You know, when this person mentioned this, you kind of ignored it and went on and started asking them for their email address or their phone number or something down the checklist. And part of that is the checklist is meant to make sure that you get the correct information, and then the scripts are meant to go through so you're doing a consistent messaging. But at the same time, you're always going to have to be listening and have some kind of empathy relating to that. And then it goes back to, are you taking the call yourself? If you're a solo practitioner, do you have someone that can actually do the intake for you? Are you in a practice area where part of that intake can be done by someone before that call gets transferred to you? One of the biggest mistakes with the intake systems that I see is when your staff takes the call, they get all the person's information, and then they transfer the call over to you or to someone else from your firm. Oftentimes you might have a call service. You want to make sure that call service, when they transfer that call over to you, that all that information that they have already taken on the phone is emailed to you immediately. So when that live transfer comes over to you and you get that call, that whoever the service is that took down the basics, that gets emailed to you right away. So you already have that information, because the client doesn't want to sit there when they've got the, in their minds, and realize sometimes it's nervous for people to call and speak to an attorney. They haven't spoken to an attorney before oftentimes. So when they finally get up the nerve to with a lot going on. And so if you're cold and someone is just asking for their information and then they get transferred to you and now you're asking for their same information again, like their email address, their phone number, their address, whatever it is, that's not a very inviting feeling. It's not giving them any kind of comfort. So you want to make sure that the part of your process is making sure you're not asking for the same information twice, and you're doing the best possible way is to make them feel comfortable. And then having after hours intake center or a call place. And when I say intake center, like a call center that can take the calls and then they can transfer them over to you if it's a live call, or they can take that information and let them know that you'll get back to them shortly. Another thing is for lunch as well. It's surprising how many, especially in family law, how many family law attorneys have their office, and then during lunch, they turn their phones off and it goes to an answer machine. So for 2 hours, and that's when a lot of people call, because oftentimes you can't call while you're working and you're going to call on your lunch break. And so, I have a good friend and I've worked with him for a long time, and he refuses to change that. And it's like, you don't need to be spending your $10,000 a month on pay-per-click, because you're wasting potentially these $500 to $7,500 retainers by people calling you at lunch and getting your answer machine. And we have the recorded calls. I think, Travis, you've listened to some of them where people call, and the answer machine goes on and the person hangs out. So it's mind-blowing to me that you can be spending $10,000 a month on pay-per-click and then not capitalizing on those leads, and realizing when a call could mean $7,500 to your firm or more. On personal injury cases, sometimes those are $1 million cases. And to let that go to a voicemail, I mean, again, and there's plenty of services out there, and Travis can mention quite a few that you can use that can help you field those calls. So I know when I first started in my criminal defense practice, I was often in court in the mornings. And so when I was in court, I can't take a call while I'm in the courthouse. So I had an answering service that would take down the basic information and let them know that I'd call them right back because it was just me. Now, as I grew, I had other attorneys, I had staff. I would also do something that a lot of attorneys, I don't think about, but in the criminal defense world, you're in court just about every day. Instead of, you can sometimes schedule your court appearances out once you get the case and set new court dates. And I would try and leave Mondays open because oftentimes people get in trouble over the weekends and we would get a lot of calls Monday morning. And if I left my Monday calendar open, then I'm there available to take some of those calls and actually talk to those clients to retain them versus setting everything on Monday and being in court until noon and then having a short break and being back in court in the afternoon. And then you're just missing out on a bunch of calls. So if that's the case for your particular practice and you know this particular time where you're getting most of your lead calls or a lot of them, you want to try and free up that calendar so you're available if it's you that is in fact taking those calls.
Yeah, and it's a good point. Tom mentioned a couple of important things I want to focus on. And one is, I know on the James Attorney marketing side of our business, we use call tracking for all of our clients, every single client. And it's amazing how few clients actually log in and take advantage of the tool. When we can record the calls, we do, and we actively promote to our clients to go in and listen to the calls and use them as teaching tools. But just things like Tom mentioned, it's like just cutting out clips, sharing them with the intake team, or just listening to yourself on the phone. It's very important. I do it to myself all the time, and the things that I pick up that I do wrong, it's incredible. And I've been doing this for quite a while. There's always something to learn. But I think the other piece that was, really fascinating to me was the number of missed calls that our clients actually, have for percentage wise of their total calls, over 20%. And that's on average of all of our clients. Some are 40, some are, 8, some are 6. But usually if you look at the firms around lunchtime or, right after 5:30, it's amazing how many people just don't answer the phone after 5:30, even though they're still in the office. They still don't answer the phone. Yeah. Well, what time do you think people get off work? It's, if people get off work, most people don't want to call you about a problem from their office. They're going to wait till they get off work, or they're going to call you during lunch. So if you don't pick up your phone, 85 to 90% of the people who get a voicemail hang up. Fact. Just a complete 100% fact. So, and if they leave a voicemail, the likelihood that you'll ever get a hold of them, just times have changed. That people don't need you need them. And the number of attorneys that are accessible to people today and how easy it is to contact them has just changed the game. So we have to be attentive to our prospects and make sure that we're there for them and meeting them where they are. It's like Mitch Jackson communicates through Facebook, he communicates through Snapchat, he communicates through video. Obviously he has somebody pick up the phones, but still, there's just so many different ways people want to communicate with you today, whether it's live chatting or SMS. It's important that you embrace, do them all, especially if you're a small firm, but embrace the ones that make the most sense, like SMS and, at a call service. And we'll share some of our partners after this webinar with you that we highly recommend that you use for various pieces of this, because there's a bunch and they're all different for various practice areas, because one just doesn't make sense for everybody. But I don't want to keep going on this because I know we want to have questions, but we're going to kind of go to the next slide here and let Tom tell us a little bit more about it.
And really quickly, Travis, I think what you want to think about too is we talk about live patch. For those of you that aren't familiar with that, that means that your call center that you're using, your answering service, they can take a call, and then if that is a potential new client, they get down the basic information, and they'll call your office and they'll live patch that call, so that person never hangs up. You don't have to call that person back, and that's ideally what you want to do. If you have an intake person, or say you have an associate attorney, what I did at my office is my associates would take different turns, and we would be on call at night. So if a call came in at 8 o'clock at night, someone's on call, and if they get that, then they're to receive that live patch from someone that calls the call center, and that call gets connected. If it's not a new client, if it's an existing client, a message is taken and it's emailed to the staff. But if it's a new client, then there's that option for a live patch, and that's critical, I think, in if you're someone who's taking business after hours. So DUI defense practice, criminal defense, possibly immigration, personal injury, obviously. Those are practices that oftentimes you're getting calls after hours, and you want to be able to still connect with those people, because the reality is if they don't connect with you, they're going to call the next person, and the person they talk to first, they feel comfortable and confident with, they're retaining. And now you're calling them back the next day and you're wondering why they didn't retain you, and you're saying it's a bad lead to your provider, whoever's getting you your leads, or even your referral sources. And the reality is they got comfortable with someone else. It's not always that it's a bad lead. It's they actually retain someone else, and that's why they're not calling you back. But that's a critical component. And the providers at Travis will show you at the end of this and get some more information to you. If you contact them, they have scripts. So they'll share with you the scripts. So if you call with Alert or ICE conversion experts, or if you the different Ruby receptionists, these companies have their own scripts that they have general scripts. You get those scripts from them based on your practice area, and then you can modify them to how whatever it is, the information you want. But that'll give you a basis to start. So reach out to them, ask them. You know, for free, they'll give you the copies of their scripts so that you can get an idea on how to start with that. But sorry, Travis, I just want to make sure we covered that.
No, it's a good point. And actually, inside the AEA members area, we have scripts for every practice area that you guys can download and utilize and change to your heart's content. So, you know, just one of the things that we provide to all of our members is, you know, the content and scripting and other pieces. So if you guys are interested, let us know, and we'll make sure that you guys have access to that information. So again, that's, you know, Tom's absolutely right. People like Abby Connect and others that are really good at this. And by the way, they're very, very affordable for what you don't know what you're missing until you hire someone like that. And it's this, you know, definitely highly recommended. But you know, this is one point I want to get to, Tom, because I know e-retainers is something that a lot of attorneys still don't embrace and they don't take advantage of, but you have done it. You've made it work yourself. You've watched it work for other attorneys. You've watched it work on the Scorpion side. You've watched it work, you know, on every facet of the business here. So tell us a little bit about, you know, why attorneys aren't embracing it and how easy it is.
Yeah, I mean, attorneys are difficult to change. A lot of times they want to have face-to-face meetings. You know, when I sold my firm, I had a possibility to sell it to two other individuals or firms, but both those firms did not utilize e-retainers and did not sign people up over the phone. And so my business model and how my practice was running, they were not going to see the same result because they were having everyone come into the office and meet them in person. And I understand that. And there are cases when that's appropriate, or that's for, you know, you need to do that, but you don't need to do that on every case, and you're losing out because if you make an appointment 3 days later and that person may not ever, they're a no-show. You know why? Because they've retained someone else during those 3 days that they had to wait. They went in and saw someone before they saw you, or someone talked to them on the phone and got them an e-retainer. So utilizing those are key. They're not nearly as difficult as attorneys make them out to be. You can take your own retainer. A lot of these companies, they'll help you convert your retainer into a form that can be used for texting or for emailing them. DocuSign's a great example of something. I know if anyone's bought a house or even anything of substantial amount of money, oftentimes you're using DocuSign now instead of having to go through all these different paperwork and going into the office to meet with someone. I know when I sold my house, I did almost everything through DocuSign. Actually, everything was done through DocuSign. So with the e-retainers, we're seeing that the highest uptick and the people that are most successful right now have utilized the texting retainers. So you can actually text, and you don't have to text. You're not texting from your cell phone. This is service. You're texting. You can text this. You can actually set it up so you can text from your office phone. But you can text them. They get a little link. They click on that link, and they simply have to scroll through. They don't have to download a new app. They don't have to do a lot of different things that you think that might be a hindrance for them retaining. It makes it rather easy. And what's nice too is, Travis, I know you've heard this often. We're all on the call. We're listening to a call, and the attorney actually says, "Well, if you're comfortable, I can send you a retainer right now. And I can walk you through it while we're on the phone right now. So if you have a few more minutes and you want to do that, we can do that." And 9 times out of 10, what do? They say yes. And then the attorney or the intake person sends that retainer over. And if the person has a question or has difficulty, it's on their phone while they're talking to that person. They're scrolling through and they simply sign in. I mean, I can't tell you how many times from the more successful firms we've seen them sign up and like the attorney says, "Oh, okay, I just received it. Thank you so much. If there's any other thing I can help, if you have more questions, here's my number." And they get off the call and they've got a new client. So,
because people aren't calling you because they don't want to hire you. All right, Tom? I mean, they're calling you because they want your help. So, but the minute that you put a barrier in front of them, making them wait to come in the office to meet you, which may be very intimidating for a lot of people, and they're right then, it's like anybody, the sense of urgency for most people when they call you is now. They want to take care of their problem now. They want to feel that that burden has been lifted, that someone's going to be on their side and going to be taking care of whatever it is that they need help with. Why not go ahead and commit with that person and say, look, let's get a committal in place if you can. I mean, we know that there's some situations. We apologize for the background noise, you guys. But again, we know there's some situations where you can't do that. But I would say in most cases you can, if you know how to ask the right questions. So again, there's so much opportunity to just shorten your sales cycle, increase your conversion rate, the number of clients that you're signing, and just make your own life easier. Why should you have to, cut out time out of your day when you could be doing, billable hour work when you can just have it signed right over the phone? I mean, into a text message. It's just, it makes no sense why people aren't embracing this. And it's something that we love to teach people how to do, because I know Tom is excellent at this. I know, I've been working with clients on it, but again, it's okay if you don't know how to do it. Like, that's why you want to reach out to people for help, but it's not that challenging and it's not that expensive.
Right, and that's key. There's not a giant price barrier to be doing this, so it's not that expensive at all. And a lot of the CRMs now that they have, practice management stuff for intake, they have that built into the system, so it allows you to send out those retainers. A lot of times you can send out a credit card authorization form with that. That's typically what I was doing back when I was doing that. Is they would have a retainer, and then a number of forms. There would be like 5 different forms, but they could all sign it with their finger or just select a signature and use that as their signature. But we had a form that they could use so that I could appear in court on their behalf, so they wouldn't have to come to court, and that would be one of the forms that they would sign. So I'd have a list of like a packet and just have them go through and sign that. Now, if it's a critical thing and I don't have the time or it's not appropriate, then I'll just have them sign the retainer, and then if they're making a payment, if it's not a personal injury case but like a criminal defense, I'll have them sign a credit card authorization form. But again, it's all done through the e-retainers, and it's not, back in the day, before e-retainers were a thing. I don't want to date myself too much here, but we were sending out the credit card form that we would fill out, and the retainer would be all ready, and then we would email or fax it to them, and then they would sign it, fill it out, and then fax it back. I mean, I can't tell you how many times someone went to a Staples or somewhere, and I would fax it to the Staples for them to sign, and they would fax it back to me. It was a much more difficult process compared to what it is today. So I encourage everyone to at least experiment with it and realize it's a game changer. I mean, if you're retaining an extra 10% of your clients because you're utilizing e-retainers, think about what does that make for your bottom line. How does that look?
That's an underestimation. I know that Denny from Denny Newberry from Captora has a study that I'm sure he'd be happy to share with you guys with several of his clients that they did through what the increased conversion rate through texting, and it was significant. I mean, it was dramatic. So that was compelling enough information for me, and I know Wallmatics is seeing the same thing for their system. So there's just so many studies out there that have said, texting is primarily the way people choose to communicate, and then why not go ahead and take advantage of that with e-retainers as well? You don't have to do it through texting. You can do it through email as well. But again, it's just so much easier, and the barrier to entry is so it's really nothing. So again,
right, and you bring a good point with Denny from Captora. I think he did a video, and maybe you can share that with the people on the call here. But where I think it was a minute and a half. He did all the steps that it takes to actually send out an e-retainer. I recorded it while he was doing it and then shared it with everyone so you could see. So I think you probably have a copy of that somewhere, or Denny can send it over to us. But it's literally a minute and a half total, I think, it takes him to put it together and send it out. So
yeah, it's true. We'll get that from Denny, and we'll share it with the people that was set up for the event. But again, if you guys have questions, please, we're going to have a few minutes here after we wrap up, and we would love to hear from you guys, because I know that there's a lot of questions about intake. So just hold on to your questions until we get to the end here, and we'll do our best to answer them all then. So Tom, one call closed. This is a foreign idea to attorneys. This is, people I haven't heard of one attorney say, embrace it and say, yeah, I can do that. Maybe one, actually, you. But this is something I think is very foreign to people. So tell us a little bit about how this can be done.
Okay, so a lot of this goes back to the initial first step on the intake, and that's creating empathy. But it's when you get the call, it's connecting with that caller through the empathy that we talked about before, and then letting them. It's about talking about yourself and saying, look, I understand what your problem is. I can help you with your problem. here's my background, here's the information that I can, here's the things that I can do to help you, and then you get them comfortable and understanding that you're on their side. And the reality is, like, we're not working with attorneys, and we're not the attorneys that are promising the world and promising stuff that just isn't going to happen. And, you know, someone calls me and they've got a third offense DUI and they're a 2-7 and they're on probation for the first 2 DUIs, and they're telling me they want to not do any jail, and they're not willing to do any kind of program or anything. And I'm like, well, I don't have all the facts. I don't know, but based on the fact that there was an accident and everything else, and you're already on probation, which says you can't drink and drive, period, I think we're gonna have some serious issues. Whereas some attorneys will sit there and tell them, like, oh yeah, I can get you no jail, and I can do this and I can do that, and it's not true. So if you're honest with the clients, but you're also telling them there is hope, but I need you to follow these steps. You're connecting with them. You're being honest with them. You're saying, okay, no, you're going to have to do this. You're going to have to do that. But I've been through this. I've had clients like this before, and here's the outcome, or here's some options that we can do to help mitigate this particular circumstance. And we can check this, make sure that the tests were done correctly and everything else. And however that applies to your practice. So this, I'm giving examples for DUI defense and what we do with that, but that applies to bankruptcy, that applies to immigration, that applies to personal injury, and how we're going to go out and investigate your case, or whatever that may be. You're going to provide them with information saying, like, I understand what you're going through, and I'm here to help you. I'm on your team, and let's do this together. And you create that connection. When you do that, then they're ready to okay, I feel good. I can't, there's so many times where, like, a dog barks in the background and I'm talking to someone and I ask, oh, you know, I heard your dog, what kind of dog do you have? And then we talked for 10 minutes about the lab that they had. And I used to have a lab, and, you know, it's off topic, but it also, it creates that stress level comes down a little bit. They connect with you that much more, and it just creates a trusting environment. So being able to do that when you're on the phone is key. And then having that retainer to be able to send it to them right away, whether it's through an e-retainer or another way, but having that so that you can actually get them to fill that out, so you don't have to be chasing them down after the call. So the last thing you want to do is have someone that's ready to connect, and then you don't have the stuff to connect with them, and now you've lost them, and now you got to get a hold of them again, and who knows what's going on in their life and what they have, so it may be more difficult. So when you can do that on what we call a one-call close, and yes, it does happen. I can tell you, ask the gentleman that bought my practice, Scott Henry, young attorney. I think he's 30 years old, 32 maybe, and, you know, he came in, worked for me as an associate, and he does a one-call close all the time. And when I say all the time, we're talking at least once a week. He's doing a one-call close. So it happens, and it doesn't have to be someone that has been practicing for 20 years and knows the in and out. Sometimes it's easier for younger attorneys to do the one-call close because they're more comfortable with the idea of doing it. Oftentimes, lawyers that are older are so used to having the client have to come in and meet with them in person that they can't wrap their head around the one-call close, and it makes it more difficult. And again, that was the reason the 2 other people that were particularly I could have sold my firm to were older and not of the mentality of doing the call and the one-call close over the phone. So it's key, and it happens, and it happens all the time.
Yeah, I think you just have to assume that people are calling you because they need your help, and that they are calling you because they want to get this problem taken care of. And it's as simple as just asking them, where are you in the process? Because if you engage with them and you say, and you convince them, they are confident that you can help them with their problem, there's no reason why they shouldn't be comfortable signing with you right then and there. And if you're making them wait, then you're literally the one creating the barrier. So if your conversion rate's low and your show rate's low, or not where it wants to be, this is something you should embrace, because people do not have patience anymore, folks. They do not. They don't like waiting for anything. I don't. So it's a matter of, I don't want to wait 2 days to come in and see you. I want to deal with this right now, because my wife is upset at me and she wants me to handle this. So it's just a matter of, let them help take care of their problem. I mean, we know it doesn't fit every time, but if you can qualify the person just by asking them simple questions, and you're, good enough at doing that, and you can listen, then you probably can do it at least, a portion of the time. And what a difference that would make for your life and your firm and your bottom line.
Right. And you got to think of leverage points. I mean, look, obviously it happens. I'm giving you some examples, but Travis, you and I both listen to calls all the time. And the reason we're talking about e-retainers and the fact that people are sending out a retainer and someone's on the phone and they get the retainer while they're on the phone and actually sign it all while never getting off the phone. Guess what? That's a one call close. And that's happening in the personal injury world. It happens all the time. I mean, we're going to this conference here in a few minutes with Morgan & Morgan, and it's put on by his firm. And it has to do, they are the masters of intake. You fill out a contact form for Morgan & Morgan, they're calling you within 12 seconds. I mean, it's crazy the systems they have in place. And if they don't get a hold of you, they're calling you back within 3 minutes. And then you're put onto basically a dialer system where it's dialing you on repeatedly after so many minutes or hours, depending on how far along that stage is. But you're competing against that. So if you don't want to be dominated by the Morgan & Morgans of the world, where there's 400-person personal injury firm that they can come in and just start advertising and take over your market, you have to be able to make sure that those calls that you do get, you're maximizing those calls and you're closing those people. Because guess what? If they call the Morgan & Morgan, they're not going to have to leave a voicemail. I can guarantee you a potential lead, a personal injury lead for Morgan & Morgan in the last, I don't know, probably 10 years, has never left a voicemail. It doesn't go to voicemail. It's not an option. So for you to compete in the world the way it is today, you need to be on top of this.
Yeah, I think people always, they say, oh, well, it's easy for Morgan & Morgan. They have all these people. In fact, it's a mistake to think that way. In fact, it's harder for them, because I don't know how many people have you grown a company to any decent size, but I can tell you from experience, it's hard. The bigger it gets, the harder it gets. And when you're small, you have more control. You have less volume. You can actually scale things and build the systems and learn from all the mistakes that people like Morgan & Morgan and Salino and Barnes and these other people have made. And all that is available to you. And that's what you go through, that learning curve. You don't have to waste the money, the time, and everything else. So, it's literally reach out to people and get more information on how you can set up an intake system. Because if you want to grow your firm, this is the number one place you need to invest. People always say, oh, well, I need another attorney or I need this. I completely disagree. If you want to start building your firm, then you should get the business first, and then you figure out how to handle it. That's my strong opinion, because you can hire all the attorneys in the world, but if you don't have the business, you're never going to be able to grow and pay them. And this is a difficult thing to figure out, but once you have a structure in place, it's easy to scale. So I think on the next slide, we've talked about it kind of at length here throughout the various pieces, but I mean, it just goes without saying, I don't even know if we need to spend too much time on this. It's like, not answering the phone, failing to track crucial data, not following up, failing to keep up with technology. And sadly enough, 80% of the firms that we work with, this is all true.
Yeah,
all true.
Definitely. And I think one of the things that I think we've both seen in different firms that we've worked with and spoken to on just, Scorpion, with my own firm and the own stuff, is like a contact form comes into the firm and the partner of the firm thinks that a particular person is making outbound calls on that contact form when you get it. Like someone fills out a web contact form on your website or through another channel and you get this lead. That person has filled out that information, they're asking for help, and then they think that, okay, well, I've told my staff that they need to get on this right away. Well, great, you've told your staff of 3 people they need to get on this right away, but you didn't assign it to a specific person, you didn't follow a certain process or set up a certain process, so you've just told them that. And now in your mind, every time a contact form comes in, you think, well, someone is calling. Well, guess what? Out of those 3 people of your staff, they all think that someone else is doing it, or none of them think it's that important because they want to make sure they get their work done so they can get out of there at 5 o'clock or whatever it may be. And so you need to make that a priority, and you need to actually assign that to a particular person. So there's accountability and tracking. And so that okay, this form came in. If you see a form come in and you have the time, you should send out an email 10 minutes later, say, hey, so-and-so, did you follow up on this? Have you made that call yet? Did you send an email? If they leave their email address, you should be calling them and then sending them an email as well. Immediately. So again, it goes back to John, I hate to harp on Morgan & Morgan, but you do it so well. You get the contact form, you're contacted immediately as soon as that thing comes through. Why? Because a lot of times someone will type out their problem and their issues with their case and whatever it might be, their questions, and they've typed it out, and now they're cutting and pasting it into 5 different contact forms of 5 different firms that they're interested in. And so
Yeah.
guess what? If you're calling them back the next day, someone else has already called them, addressed their problem, made them feel comfortable, and now they've already retained. So when you call them back, they're not going to pick up the phone, and you're going to wonder and think that, oh, well, these are all crappy leads. Well, they're not. You know, and granted, not every lead is just like falls in your lap and they want to hire you and it's a perfect lead. But there are plenty of good leads, and I see this all the time with firms that they'll just say, like, I retain 100% of the leads that I get. They're clients that would be potential clients. And people still say that today. Like, I don't do it. You know, Scott with my old practice, he doesn't do it. You don't retain 100% of the people. You just want to retain the best ability you can, and no one retains 100%. The Morgan & Morgans don't retain 100%. They're awfully close, but they don't do 100%. So the fact that there's still so many solo practitioners or smaller firms out there that say that lets you realize that they say that because once they feel a connection and they get someone in their office and they close, and of course I closed them because I close 100%. And then if they're in their office and they don't close, it's, well, they didn't have the money, or they didn't, you know, oftentimes you create a connection with someone. I found in criminal defense, they'll reach out to other family members to get loans in order to pay for that. Initially, when you first talk to them, if you don't create that connection, you're not asking the right questions, they're not connected to you, so they want to know the price, and now you're price shopping. And if you're price shopping, you don't want to play that game. You're not competing on price. If you're doing that, you're going to lose. So you want to compete on service and what the value for what they're hiring you. And that's why I would get a $5,000 retainer when I'm competing against firms that are charging $750 for the same thing. And granted, their service is not nearly the same. They don't have the expertise, but that's, you know, if someone just wants to spend $750 for their attorney, just to have an attorney to show up and plead them guilty, then you're not going to change that person's mind. But if you create a connection with someone who thinks that they only have $750 and, oh, this attorney is willing to take this case, but then you explain to them and make them feel and understand the actual value that you bring. If you really want to fight this, you're going to have to actually spend some money, because I can't do this for $750 because of all the work I put into this. They will all of a sudden, oftentimes, find a way. They'll talk to their parents, they'll talk to their friends, they'll talk to other family members, and they'll come up with that money. So that's such a big hurdle with attorneys, is getting them to even get down to that discussion, because oftentimes, as an attorney, I understand you get frustrated because you take these calls and it's like, oh, well, I'm going to talk to them for half an hour and then they're going to say they can't afford me. Well, sometimes they just can't afford you, but oftentimes you haven't created that connection or sold yourself on the value you're actually providing them for them to rationalize coming out with that amount of money. And
that's a great point, because I get that. Yeah, because I can't tell you how many times we do the same in every business. It's, you know, there's always someone cheaper. But it's, if you're going into that, telling them why, you know, the ramifications of having a bad attorney, or what the process looks like for them 5 years after getting a DUI, their insurance goes up, you know, all these other factors that they don't think of right then and there. I mean, there's just so many costs that are associated with a DUI, but then an injury case. If you're just going to have someone who's going to take the first offer the insurance company gets just to basically, you know, get it, close the file, well, how much are you losing? I mean, that's the question. There's so many things that a good attorney can do for their clients, but if you assume that they should know that you're good and that you bring value and you've been doing this for 20 years and you're just the best, well, you got to stop assuming that, because no one cares and no one looks that deep into your information anymore, because all they do is call from the first page of Google and they go down the line until someone picks up the phone and isn't an asshole to them. And that's, you know, who they hire typically, unfortunately. I mean, that's the way the world works.
And personal injury is a great example of something that's tough, because what? You're not competing on price, because everyone's going to do your case you're doing it for free, right? So what are the differentiators? Why are they going to hire you versus someone else? And so you want to make sure you're educating the client on your expertise, the fact that you've handled a bunch of cases, the fact that, you know, we're going to set you up with the proper treatment and make sure you're taken care of and the bills are paid, but we also want to make sure that you treat in a certain way that you're going to do your best to get you a full recovery, both physically, mentally, and financially. And because of our experience in doing this, we're going to set it up in a way to maximize that value, versus some of these other firms that you may talk to, have already talked to. they don't, and I don't, I don't talk about specific firms, but they may not, be doing all these things. They may not send out an investigator to some interviews. They may not set you on treatment, the proper treatment to make sure that we're maximizing your recovery down the road. And so, and also as a personal injury firm, sometimes you may say, like, we have the money behind us that we can wait out the insurance company if the offer is not right. We don't have to take this money because we're not sitting here just trying to get your money as quick as possible. We want to do what's right for you. And so we're in a position to be able to do that. And we're going to make sure that you're informed and educated the whole way so you understand what's going on. And if you can sell them on those things and those differentiators and why that, hiring you is the right move, you can do that while you're on the phone with them and create that connection and get that retainer. And it's done.
Yep, I want to try to get to some questions here. So the client takeaways here, folks. I mean, again, we've been talking about this stuff the whole time. Is empathy is impactful and obviously critical. Intake success begins with an intake system. I mean, it's a no-brainer. E-retainers make it intake a breeze. And we talked about that at length. Most intake calls should be managed with a one call close. That's the mindset I think that you should go into it with, right, Tom? I mean, just going in saying, look, I'm going to sign this client on the phone. There's nothing wrong.
Yeah, I get it.
Sorry, Tom.
No problem. I see you cut off a little bit. Travis and I are out in a patio here, so right before a conference, so we had to deal with what we had. But the one take close, and I understand that not every practice area is it works that way, but a lot of them they do. Like in family law, I understand sometimes you get a family law client and they call in and they have some concerns and you want to get in and meet them in person because they may not be ready to pull the trigger on a divorce. So that goes to other things too, which isn't really part of the intake here, but having a system to follow up with people months down the road. So like a family law or a bankruptcy client or someone like that, oftentimes there's a cycle that they go through sometimes before they're ready to actually hire that person, that lawyer. And so if they first, you create that connection with them, and you need a way to stay in touch with them over the course of the next, 3, 6 year to have that connection. So when they're really ready to maybe they have that final fight with their spouse that they're done. Then they're ready to make that call, but they weren't so sure before, but they wanted to get some information. If you create that connection, empathy, and had a system where you have some touch points with that person along the way, they're going to remember you and contact you when they're ready to make that decision. Yeah,
and the last point there is critical. It's something we preach to our clients and we preach to everybody. Follow up, track your data, answer your phone, and implement changes. If every great athlete has only they didn't start out great. I mean, if you watch great athletes train and practice and do everything that they do, they're constantly filming themselves. They're constantly taking measurement of their success, their form. There's 40 times. I mean, just numerous things. I mean, it's just insane. Now, we're not expecting you guys to go that hardcore and all that stuff, but it just makes sense to track the basics. I mean, make sure you're following up, making sure that your conversion rate, you're tracking your conversion rates, and you're being honest with yourself about what you actually are converting, right? Instead of the infamous people who say, oh, I convert 100% of the people who want to hire me. Well, yeah, I do too. So it's, that's not a real number, and you're not doing yourself any favor by doing that. So it's just being honest with yourself about what are the number of leads that I got. What are the number of people that hired me? What are the people who showed? What are the people who we were able to close over the phone? Very basic, fundamental metrics that you can measure inside your office if you just put a system in place. And we actually have some offline systems you can use, and we'll share with you that you guys can use. So there's basic forms and spreadsheets, but there's available Captura, Wallmatics, Prevail. There's so many great systems out there today that you can choose from that do this for you and help you do it. So again, technology is key. And, we know not everybody in the legal space has embraced it, but it's definitely something you're gonna have to.
I can't stress enough the fact that you go back and listen to calls, especially if you're not taking the calls, if someone else is. Travis, we just had last week, we were talking about a firm and listened to some of their calls, and the firm was bragging about how good their intake was, and sure enough, it wasn't very good. And we sent the calls over to the attorney, and sure enough, that attorney was a little bit taken back. He didn't realize that he was having that many problems with his intake and how that was going. So it's key for you to, as part of your system that you create, you want to create within that system a way to measure and to check. So maybe it's listening to 3 particular calls every week or whatever it is. And you don't have to listen to the whole call. You can listen to the start of the call and then listen to parts of it through the way to figure out what's going on. So I don't mean to say like block out 2 hours of just listening to calls every week, because I know you're pressed for time, you're busy, you've got a lot going on, but taking the time to at least check on 2 to 3 calls every week to see how they're handled is going to be key.
Yep, we want to jump into some questions here. And if you guys want to get in touch with Tom, here's Tom's contact information. Tom Wallin, his cell phone number is 714-305-4233. It's info@thomaswallin.com. Is there a better way for them to contact you, Tom, or is that the best way to get in touch with you?
That's the best way. You're welcome to call me through that. You can also email me at thomas@scorpion.co, C-O, if you like. But yeah, info@thomaswallin works. I'm happy to talk to anyone and not charge anything. Just I enjoy helping people. So if you have any questions, again, I can work with Travis, make sure we got the resources for you to make sure you get set up in the best way possible.
Again, if you guys have questions, feel free to type them in the Q&A. I'm going to try to jump over to the Q&A real quick here, and we have one. Does it help to have an auto response message in place? And I'm going to answer this one, and Tom can answer it too. Yes, absolutely. If you cannot get to the phone, having autoresponders in place is absolutely critical. So text messaging, emails, and even now they have robotic calls, but that's kind of out there a little bit. But Tom, what's your experience with having auto-response messages in place?
Yeah, I think that's key. I think that the only issue I have with it sometimes is sometimes you fall back to that autoresponder, especially like on Facebook Messenger. You'll create a bot or something that automatically responds to someone, and therefore you're not on top of it as much as you should be. So don't use the autoresponder as a way to say, oh, I don't need to call them back right away or whatnot. But having an autoresponder is definitely, if you can't take the call right away, having that available. Another thing that I forgot to mention that I think is key is when you're on the phone with your clients and people read all their text messages. They don't read their emails. They don't get all the emails, whatever. So if someone's going to come in the office, you haven't done the one call close, but they're going to be coming in, text them your address, text them your contact information. That way it's in their phone already, and they just got to touch that, and bam, they can contact you, or they got directions that are right there on their phone. They just have to click on it. Make it as easy as possible for them to meet with you or retain you.
Great. If anybody has any more questions, we'd love to answer them. We have a few more minutes here, but if we don't get one here in the next couple minutes here, we'll just wrap it up. But again, if you guys have questions, it looks like we've got another question here. That's good. Let me jump over to that real quick. And looks like, what was the application mentioned that you could send retainers by text? Well, which was Captora has a system in place where they do e-retainers via text. Wallmatics has a system where they send e-retainers via text. I believe Prevail does as well. So there's a lot of different systems out there. Do just whatever's right for your firm. But I know that there's HelloSign. They actually have that too.
Yeah, Travis, I want to make sure that you were not just mentioning. So those are intake programs and stuff that have that integrated within the intake programs, which are great. But there's plenty of apps out there that you can do it through their apps. So you don't have to necessarily be using Captora or particular intake conversion software, which I do recommend having something in place, some kind of software for tracking. But if you're just looking for just, a signature thing, DocuSign and some other ones like that, yeah, you can do that. And then if you have any questions, email them to us. I'm happy to give you some resources and some different ones to try out. Usually most of them have a free trial period, and you can just experiment with that, text other people in your office the documents to see how it is, and then watch them and text yourself those documents. So you want to have a full understanding of what it's like for your client, that process of them signing up. You need to visualize that, because sometimes you're going to be on the phone. Hopefully, if you've mastered the one call close, you'll be on the phone with them while they're doing the document. And so since you're familiar with it and you've done it yourself, you know exactly what they're seeing on their phone, and you can explain that to them. So make sure you're very familiar with the program. Whatever one you decide to use, make sure you're very familiar with it, and your staff is as well.
Yeah, and Steve asked again, Steve's going to share guidance on sending e-retainers. Steve, we're going to send out some list of the best systems to use, and The way to do that, and if you have very specific questions, let us know, and get in touch with us after, and we're happy to kind of dig into exactly what your situation is and provide you with a little bit more guidance. So please, feel free to reach out. We had another, someone asked, what are the recommendations for feature-rich CRMs? Again, Captora, Wallmatics, Prevail. There's a ton of them. I mean, there's literally a lot of CRMs that are available to you today, and we, again, they're all very different. They all do similar things, but again, they're all very specific to different practice areas. So it makes sense to kind of go. That's a long process, but those are the three that come to mind right now, and that we recommend, that we've worked with anyway. So again, there's a lot out there, but those three, in my mind, have been some of the best that we've worked with so far. Tom, do you have any other systems that come to mind?
No, I mean, there's plenty out there. And look, if you're just starting out and you don't think you can afford it, again, it's going to pay for itself right away. But if you don't think you can afford it, you can even set up a Google spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, and use that in a way to at least be tracking your stuff. And then Travis may have some examples of that as well that he could share with you. But I understand sometimes people aren't ready to spend that kind of money, whatever it is, on that. But you need to think about the opportunity cost and what is that costing you by not having these systems in place, whether it's the texting service, whether it's the CRM service, the intake, having the call center. If you're spending money on advertising, you should have these systems in place, plain and simple.
Good point. Yeah. If you're spending money, I can't tell you how many personal injury attorneys that I talk to are spending over 10, 15, 20, even $30,000 a month. And they have no follow-up system in place. They have no metrics in place. They have nothing. And the amount of waste and amount of money that they're throwing away it's crazy. I mean, it just blows my mind. You might as well take it to Vegas and put it on black or red and say, let's just roll with it, because you're going to probably have better return. I mean, I'm being honest. You need to have systems in place, especially today. It's simple enough to do. They're all, again, very easy to put in place if you have the patience and the time. We have another quick question here. I'm going to jump over to what kind of metrics are valuable to track for intake follow-up? Tom, this is probably better for you to answer.
So intake follow-up. So how quickly are you following up? So if we're talking about just missed a call and how you're following up, it's going to be how much time does it take to actually call them back after you weren't available, and then how many times do you call them back? Track that and track the time. So was it you called them back, missed the call, and then an hour later you called them back again? Was it 15 minutes later, and then did you call them back later that day again? You'd be surprised. So many people are hesitant. They'll call them once, and they might call them the next day or 2 days later, and that's it. You need to call them multiple times the first day, and at least call them twice the next day, and set a time to, depending on the life cycle of the client, how long you're going to call them until you're just giving up. But Stephen Fairley, who has the Rainmaker Institute and does a lot of great stuff with intake as well, will say you need to call them at least 10 attempts before you're giving up. So that's one metric to look at. Also, like on your contact forms, how quickly do you contact them once you get a contact form in? And then also the metrics are for someone like family law. If you get someone that's interested, you think that they may become a client, they're just not ready to actually implement an action to start a divorce, then you want to put them on a system where they're getting emails on a regular basis. And I would say emailing them, some people do it weekly, some people do a monthly newsletter or information. I would say in the beginning, send them something out weekly. And then if you haven't heard from them, but you can see if they're opening up your emails. If they're opening up your email still, then break it down to every month and put them on a regular. If you have a newsletter that goes out every month, put them on that system and make sure they're still getting that newsletter. So having something in place to like that.
Texting too. This is where texting is very important. I think as well. People are really comfortable texting, and just checking in, seeing where people are with their decision and the process is really simple to do and not that invasive. So people are a lot more comfortable responding to a text message than they are picking up a phone in most situations.
Yeah, I definitely changed much myself from I don't leave voicemails. People don't typically leave voicemails for me now. I much prefer getting a text, and I think. If you're someone who's older and still like, oh, what do you mean you don't leave a voicemail? I don't understand that. If you've got kids, look at your kids and how they communicate. If they've got phones, no one's leaving voicemails. It's all done through text. Texting allows you to respond when you can, and you don't have to immediately handle that thing right away if that's in fact what you don't want to handle that call right now. And so having, again, texting them too also has your information right there in their phone where they're always in looking at text. So it's permanently there until they delete it. So I definitely recommend texting as one of the things of saying, hey, we missed your call. If you'd like to call us back, here's our number, whatever. You can have canned responses that you send out as part of your text through texting services. So you're actually texting through your office phone.
Well, Tom, I think we are just bumping up against the time here, and we got to wrap it up. But again, we want to thank you for your time, and we want to thank everybody who joined us for their time. We want to remind you guys that a lot of the stuff that we talked about, the scripts and other material, is available in the Member Center of the AEA website. So please, if you haven't gained access to that, we recommend that you do. There's a lot of great stuff in there. If you have questions for Tom, his contact information is on the slides. We're going to email it out to everyone. We can't thank you enough for your time. We hope that you guys really enjoyed this and learned something today. I know I did, and I appreciate Tom's time. You have anything to wrap up with this, Tom?
No, just thank you very much. I'm looking forward to the conference we're going to here in a few minutes. And then, yeah, anyone has questions, I'm more than happy to talk to you or answer any questions. Shoot me a text, call me, or send me an email.
All right, everyone. That's it for us. We'll see you next time. Thanks.